The Big Issue, breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. You're welcome to Leadership Podcast. It's another edition of The Big Issue. And of course, we're a little bit behind schedule, and without taking much of your time, I am your regular host as usual. George Agba is my name, and with me here in the studio is our in-house analyst, Chibuzo Okaibe.
Thank you, sir.
While the big issue of the day takes us to the state, where there is growing anxiety over impending upset by smaller political parties ahead of the governorship and state assembly elections billed to hold this coming Saturday. Well, state governors are said to be jittery over smaller opposition parties ahead of the Saturday governorship and state assembly polls. The governors are back to the drawing board, and this time around, they are mapping out strategy on how to avoid a repeat of the upsets recorded by these opposition parties against the governing parties in their respective states during the presidential and national assembly election held penultimate Saturday. And this has actually led to a different kind of campaign where in Lagos we are beginning to hear feelers that the opposition, the governing APC, is claiming that the governorship candidate of the Labour Party in Lagos, Rose Vivo, is not a Yoruba man. Of course, we all know that Rose Vivo is married to an Igbo lady. The mother is an Igbo lady. He himself is a confirmed Yoruba man, but he's been accused of running an anti-Yoruba agenda in favor of the Igbos. Those are the election coming is going to be something that all eyes will be on, because it's not going to be that usual major parties taking it on. And this has reflected on how the governors are becoming jittery. And who will blame them? In Lagos, Fanika Ode is warning about Rose Vivo, saying that they should make sure that Sanwo-Olu returns as the governor, because the LP candidate is part of those who burned down houses in Lagos State during the NSAS protest. Is this enough to say you can't vote somebody because he was part of a protest that took place? Is it in 2020 or 2021? And in Nasarawa State, where the SDP trashed the governing APC, winning seats in the National Assembly, there is growing anxiety. In Gombe State, where the PDP presidential candidate defeated the APC presidential candidate hands down, the anxiety there is much, because even in the National Assembly polls, the PDP took over most of the seats in the National Assembly. What do you see coming? Don't you think, despite the upset in the presidential election, but the direction in which the presidential election went might decide to change the tide, make it different from what we saw 2 Saturdays ago?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by noting a concern. A concern that has to, and you did point it out, a concern that has to do with the tribalization and what's the other one now? The religiosity that has become of these elections. I think as much as these are two key sentiments that you can't ignore, but the fact that the fact that it is becoming at the center of what political discourse should be ahead of elections or in the course of the elections to determine, how people should vote and all of that is, I think, rather worrisome. It's really worrisome because with that kind of mentality, it shifts away from whoever has capacity to do the job and the need for accountability thereof. So I think it is something maybe after this whole process has been done with, as a country, we needed to sit down and reflect on it properly. Because I think that is one of the major issues
that is actually affecting.
Yes, that is really coming out of this whole electoral process that I'm saying. Never mind that of course we mind that the INEC has its own issues with logistics and all of, but I think these two issues, as we have seen in the course of the general elections, from the presidential to what we are going to have in a couple of days, this problem or this issue of religion and tribe being front and center in political discourse ahead of elections, I think is something we really need to reflect on and find a cause around that. Now, looking at the states, of course, it's going to be really intriguing to see how things pan out because already we are already seeing the governors, incumbents, beginning to come down from their high horses. We've seen a number of interventions they're beginning to make to see how they directly engage people that will vote. And whether you like it or not, I think it's more about, it has more to do with the vibrancy of the voters in the course of these elections that we've seen. And of course, it has to do with the young people who are mainly within a particular party, which is the Labour Party. So there is this, if you will, clamor for shift in governance style. And it has gotten a life of its own in the course of these elections. So we are seeing governors, unlike before, where they would just, take it that they are going to win because they are the only major structure in the state. But now we are seeing them, in a way, come down from their high horses and try to engage the electorate and try to make them see reasons why they shouldn't. We saw that play out. We have seen that play out in Lagos State, for instance, where Shonwulu has really made efforts to talk to electorates directly.
I'm not just talking to them; it's even winning them with certain incentives.
Exactly, deploying incentives, holding town hall meetings with different publics. And tribal enclaves to ensure that it gets the buy-in, because what played out in Lagos was outstanding, and it was astounding, for them. Nobody would have thought that the Labour Party will give APC a bloody nose in Lagos. And so when you have that kind of scenario, nobody tells you twice to sit up as an incumbent under the APC platform. And so I think that is what he's trying to do now, to see how much he can blunt that force, so that, he can now, get an edge going into this. But he has some other things going for him too at the level of politics. Of course, at the level of governance, there are a number of things he can show. The light rail completion, the ports and all of that. He has equally done well with regards to infrastructure, no doubt about that. He has done some landmark, infrastructural development in the state. So there's no taking anything away from that. But the fact that you had the NSAS thing, and the epicenter of all that movement was in Lagos, and there's no taking away that anger. Whether he's able to blunt that force between now and then when the elections will hold is a different matter. However, in the political front also, there is the division within the opposition ranks. You have the PDP and you have the Labour Party. Both of them have refused. These two parties have refused to forge an alliance going into this. And if that happens, we might probably see a repeat of what played out at the presidential race, where you had these two guys slugging it out and dividing their votes going into the elections. So it is likely that we are going to see a repeat of that from the look of things, because the APC votes remain in one piece, while votes that would have gone either to PDP or Labour Party would be split. So unless something drastic happens, it's almost likely that Shomolu will pick this one. Go to other states, you have almost not so similar scenarios, apart from areas maybe that the Labour Party had a clear sweep, maybe in the southeast. Now, whether they can repeat that in the governorship election will be interesting to see, because now I believe most governors would have learned lessons from what happened. Most incumbents would have learned lessons from what happened in the presidential and would want to make up for that. But do they have enough time to do that? How much would they have to do to convince people to look in that direction this time around? Another thing. But there's also another factor with the outpouring of concern that trailed the presidential election, particularly with the collision of results and the IREV and the portals and all of that didn't pan out well, and the disenchantment that trailed all of that. Are we going to have people come out en masse to engage the process? That is the only way, to a large extent, that the momentum, can continue for those who want a change of government or not. Yeah. So these are the factors that might play out as things evolve.
Well, we are actually going to take a short break now. And when we come back, we'll be looking at other states other than Lagos that we've been able to. Before we do so, we will actually encourage our viewers to contribute constructively to the discussion, conversation on the big issue. And we expect that by the time we're back, we will see their comments trickling in. Don't go offline. We'll be back in a moment.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome back. We are still on the big issue in Leadership Podcast. And of course, in the big issue today, we are looking at the apprehension in states across the Federation over upsets by smaller political parties in the forthcoming governorship and state assembly elections bill to hold this Saturday. So, Chibuzo, we have seen how it is in Lagos and how Sanwo-Olu is struggling to save his head. In Rivers State, what is baffling me is that the same Governor Nyesom Wike, who worked and ensured that the presidential candidate of the APC emerged the president, is the same Wike that has gone to align now with the Labour Party. And the case in River now is that some executive from the 23 local councils, executive of Labour Party, have adopted the governorship candidate of the PDP in the state. Wike did not work for his party in the presidential election. Now for the governorship, Wike has turned to his party and has even gone to join forces with Labour Party. And what he did was to break the ranks of Labour Party, where we now have two ESCOs.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, one ESCO is calling the shot because they are duly recognized by the governor. In spite of all these intrigues and political maneuvers by the leader of the G5 governor, according to what I saw on social media recently, they say the G5 governor, the disaster that befell them, they say Governor Wanye down, Igbeazu down, Otom down. Who again? Makinde
is
still in there, but it's
shaky.
shaky because he has dropped from one altitude. And we saw Makinde putting adverts in every paper throughout this week. That shows you how jittery he is. But in Rivers, how far do you think Wike will go with all this romance with the same Labour Party he worked against to ensure the emergence of the APC candidate?
I think, before the presidential election, he probably wouldn't have bothered much about the Labour Party. And the same go for most governors. Nobody would have given Labour Party much of an attention. But immediately the results, as were put out, started to flow in, and people saw that this party that supposedly had nothing appears to be gaining a lot of ground. They began to take the Labour Party seriously, and so it is not surprising that even when Wike was speaking in his last outing, he was trying to say, "Oh, I'm for." The impression he gave was, "I am for any southern candidate, presidential candidate." So at that level, I didn't work against Tinubu and I didn't work against Obi. So he left it. He gave a sense of all my intent was to have a southern candidate for fairness, which he has always tried to say over and over again. But breaking the ranks of the Labour Party in Rivers State depends on how you look at it. For pragmatic politicians, they will tell you that it's a masterstroke. It's a masterstroke because what he has successfully done is to sow a seed of doubt,
of course,
within the ranks of the Labour Party.
I'm sorry to cut you short. The cumulative effect of that was that the National Working Committee of the Labour Party dissolved its executive council in the state.
So with that action, when you strike the head, you scatter the. You understand. So there will be a lot of distraction, a lot of confusion as to where do we go, But again, and from the look of things, the most potent opposition party in the state now would have been Labour Party, because even the SDP is struggling. Not even the APC. APC is, because as it stands now, with what Wike has successfully done, he has cornered the APC in the state. He has the APC in the state in one hand. Of course, he's in firm grip of the PDP in the other hand. And now he has a feat in the Labour Party. So it will be very difficult to see how, his candidate will lose in the state, as it were. So it's really going to be quite tough for the opposition to make any headway as far as Rivers State is concerned, because as it remains now, they are totally disunited
and destabilized.
Totally disarray, So then, but I think what will be much more interesting too is some states in the north, where the margin of victory between the PDP and then, because in those areas, when I talk of I mean areas like Sokoto, Kaduna, all those places, Gombe, and all those areas, where the margin of victory wasn't so wide. So it will be very, very intriguing and interesting to see how elections in those areas pan out, because it is going to be purely a two-party thing. From this point of view now. What I mean, APC and PDP.
I think
so. It's going to be a clear battle of these two parties.
Not really to cut you short. I think in the north, the party that is more jittery is the governing APC. Yesterday, being Monday,
Yeah.
the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, Atiku Bagudu, and his Jigawa counterpart, Abubakar Badaru, were at the APC National Secretariat, where some governorship candidates of the APC in the state also came to meet with the national chairman. And somebody said it was a last-minute effort to avoid a repeat of such major upsets in those states. The the governorship candidate of Benue, Delta, Bauchi, and one other state again. They were there, they held that meeting, and it all boiled down on what you're just saying here, where states in the north, where the margin was not much, and now the major parties there, like APC, is now making everything to ensure that they avoid such upset. See Gombe. PDP defeated the APC hands down. I think even in the senatorial election, it was only Senator Goje who was able to clinch his senatorial seat, despite being an APC member. And in Nasarawa, it was not even about the PDP upstaging the APC. Smaller party like SDP. What do you foresee in these states? I think we can round up with that. Some of these states, because somebody had said that at least the presidential election, with the presidential election being held, the outcome of the presidential election will affect the way the votes, the wave, and how it will go in this governorship election. Do you think these major upsets are possible following from the presidential election and its outcome, or we are still going to see the same thing? Because it seems Nigerians are angry.
It's going to be a dicey call, and I think a lot of factors are going to go into this to determine how it swings. One, the popularity of the candidate will be very key, because this will be about the states now, not just the presidential. So it's peculiar to the people of that state, and they would know who their candidate, who are the who is the better option for them. That is speaking broadly. And then it will be interesting too to see how the people will engage the process. Are people going to turn out the way they did in the presidential election? So because these are the factors that will determine how these things swing. But again, the question would be the scramble to belong to the center. Most states will scramble now to belong, to the center. So they will start marketing to their people that, hey, this is the party that has emerged at the center. Of what benefit is it if you don't belong to the party at the ruling that is ruling at the national level? What would we stand to gain if you play the opposition? Can we afford that kind of politics in the next 4 years? What do we stand to gain? So these are the little permutations that will play into this. So such realignments are likely going to play out. Whether there will be enough to sway votes will be a totally different matter altogether, because we've seen a very almost neck and neck. For instance, in Sokoto, and Sokoto has always been like that. Even the governor, Tambo, had a tough one, winning the second time. It was very, very close, and we are seeing almost that again play out, even in the presidential election. So it's likely that we are going to see same again this time. Then never mind that he's not even going to be on the ballot. He'll be going for Senate. So a different person will be running on the PDP platform. So you can imagine how intense that is going to be. In Kano, we also saw the same thing play out in 2019. It was even though Kwankwaso was not on the ballot, but he was able to pull a lot of weight. But now we saw him clean out Kano. In fact, it was a total clean out. So whether he's going to replicate that this time around is a different matter. Will Gandija have learned some lessons? Of course, definitely. But will he be able to do much to close that gap? That would be another interesting prospect to see. In Kaduna is really going to be very interesting, because as it stands now, the governor
is one state that
I've never seen El Rufai being so humble. Let me use that word, and anxious. I've never seen him be so anxious and seemingly unsure of himself, unlike the kind of energy he would have protruded before. When he normally engages. So it is going to be really interesting to see. Unfortunately, the PDP and the Labour Party are still, not agreeing on any form of, and last like in Lagos, unless they have that kind of bond or understanding, it might be difficult for them to take out the APC, because the APC votes will remain in one place while they split whatever they have. Unfortunately also the geopolitics there appears to have widened the gulf in the state. So it will be really interesting to see what plays out. You mentioned Gombe, of course. The governor now will want to prove that he was not working for Atiku. Yes. That's the challenge he has, because now APC has won at the center. So all attention will be on him. So how can you be a governor in the state and the opposition?
Your state.
Exactly. So he'll be seriously under intense pressure to prove that he was not working for Atiku. If not that, but to prove too that he is on ground in the state. What other states? Of course, we saw what played out in Plateau. Labour Party had a good showing in Plateau,
despite the fact that is the state
of the DG.
Of the DG.
So he also has to prove that he's on top of his game in the state and that he can deliver the state, because it's not a case of providing your scorecards to the national so that you can, whatever appointment you want to get, you can have bragging rights.
It very easy.
So a lot of things will be on the table going into the governorship election.
Well, thank you very much, Chibuzo. Well, the die is cast, and of course, the tension is high, and of course, the in the states there is palpable apprehension whether the outcome of the presidential election is actually going to change the voting pattern is what most Nigerians are waiting to see. And the opposition parties, the People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party, where we would have expected that they would have come together to form a strong alliance to make up a very good show this time around, still believe that they can win on their own without such alliance. But whichever way it goes, it will be very interesting. And Nigerians are watching to see what it will turn out to be. Will the APC be the government at the center without control of the states? Because the governorship election will determine how many states the APC at the center will control, and how many states the PDP, which is the major opposition party, will control, and how many states the Labour Party, the new strong opposition party in the bloc, will be able to grab from the two major parties, the APC and the PDP. That is the intriguing aspect of the elections coming this Saturday. Time will tell. The time is ticking very fast, and it's just about 2 days to go. Thank you for keeping tab with us, and of course, I'll thank our very vibrant in-house analyst, a political pundit, Chibuzo Kaibe, for addressing the big issue. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of this program. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.